chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachment even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to achieve the desired success of Krishna Prema. Once again, I thank everyone for joining Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call today. Let us move on to our next part of the session, which is Srimad Bhagavatam class. May I know who all joined this morning?
Hare Krishna, Benita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas, and all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Tiffany in Pennsylvania. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tiffany Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining and giving your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai, Priti Dasi from Charlotte. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Priti Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavats Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Meena from Atlanta.
Hare Krishna, Meena Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining. And it's very nice to hear your voice every day introducing Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, dear Vinita Gandharvi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai. You are make our days by your big smile. Hare Hare Gauranga.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Gopika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to Assemble devotee. This is Mohini Lakshmi from Detroit.
Hare Krishna, Mohini Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. This is Radharani Devidasi from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna, Radharani Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Rana.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. This is Indulekha Karuna Devidasi from Lincoln.
Hare Krishna, Indulekha Karuna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, is there anybody who would like to introduce themselves? Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Today we are very fortunate to have Her Grace Jayasri Mataji to enlighten us on topic of Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto, 8th chapter, verse 17 and 18. Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. We are very fortunate to have you on the call, Mataji. Before I hand over the call to you, I would like to give it to Tiffany Mataji to give a brief introduction. Please take over, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. We are so very fortunate to have in our midst Her Grace Jayasri Mataji. She is the disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jayasri grew up in Hawaii, and at the age of 18, she left home on a spiritual quest. After reading various religious texts and becoming bewildered by the differing philosophies they presented, she prayed to God to send her someone who knew him. Shortly thereafter, she met Srila Prabhupada. It was 1969 and she was barely 20 years old. In 1974, she received her second initiation from Srila Prabhupada. She is fondly remembered by all for being the one who stitched a saffron coat and hooded cape, which were worn lovingly by Srila Prabhupada for many years. Her Grace Jayasri Mataji later moved to New Vrindavan and served the deities there. Though she has traveled to many other places as part of her multiple devotional services, her core services always rested in New Vrindavan. Vaishnava is always par dukha dukhi, thus very compassionate and very kind at heart. We see that quality so prominent in Mataji. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, she painstakingly stitched face masks for all age groups so that devotees could continue with their uninterrupted service to Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, welcome to the call. Please take over the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Is Shamagori on the call?
Yes, Mataji, she is there.
Okay. Can't go on without Shamagori. Good morning, everyone. Hare Krishna. My respects and dandavats to you and your service to Srila Prabhupada and the Lord. So we're very fortunate to start a wonderful Bhagavatam class. I don't know how we've come across such good fortune, but here we are. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Ballava Giridharadhari Yasudnandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Nitai Go Haribo 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 Nitai Go Haribo Nitai Go Haribo 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 Nitai Go Haribo Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvadrakacharya Strater Satis Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvadrakacharya Strater Satis Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Karta Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Sri Hayatas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Sambhaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga, all glories to Sri Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are so fortunate to be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. 1 second here. Oops, wrong one. That is the beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam. It is Canto 5, Chapter 8, text number 17, and it is a very short verse. Shamagori, your expertise?
Api Shame. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Api Kshemenasminashramopa Vane Charantam Devaguptam Drakshami.
Thank you. It seems like such a different type of verse as we usually read. I was surprised. Didn't have that 4 lines. So a P, it may be, case, and we're going to do the next verse, but we don't need the Sanskrit for that. Case me now with fearlessness because of the absence of tigers and other animals. Asmin in this. Ashrama upavane, garden of the hermitage. Saspani charatanam, walking and eating the soft grasses. Devaguptam, being protected by the demigods. Drikshami, shall I see. Translation. Alas, is it possible that I shall again see this animal protected by the Lord and fearless of tigers and other animals? Shall I again see him wandering in the garden eating soft grass? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Bharat, although I thought that the animal was disappointed in his protection and had left him for the protection of a demigod. Regardless, he ardently desired to see the animal again within his ashram, eating the soft grass and not fearing tigers and other animals. Bharat Maharaj could think only of the deer and how the animal could be protected from all kinds of inauspicious things. From the materialistic point of view, such kind thoughts may be very laudable. But from the spiritual point of view, the king was actually falling from his exalted spiritual position and unnecessarily becoming attached to an animal. Thus degrading himself, he would have to accept an animal body. And the next verse. I do not know, but the deer might have been eaten by a wolf or a dog, or by the boars that flock together, or the tiger who travels alone. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Tigers never wander in the forest in flocks. Each tiger wanders alone, but forest boars keep together. Similarly, dogs, wolves, and similarly, hogs, wolves, and dogs also do the same. Thus, Maharaj Bharat thought that the deer had been killed by some of the ferocious animals within the forest. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurabani Pacharane Nirvisesa Sunyabadi. I'm going to read this in English. I was born in the darkest ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established in the material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? When will Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within the material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all the Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatan Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das, Raghunath Bhatta, Gopal Bhatta, Sri Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Srivas, and all the associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. Oh, my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respectful obeisances to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So the beautiful story, which is very educational, of Maharaj Bharat comes to our purview at this particular part of the Bhagavatam. And what does it remind you of? It reminds me really a lot of Arjuna, right? So there's Maharaj Bharat. He's taking care of this deer. He's in the forest. The deer has disappeared from his view. And he's thinking of all these reasons why he should be thinking and taking care of this deer. His whole mind is just full of the safety and the deer's lifestyle. Where is he? What is he doing? Why isn't he here? So with Arjuna, he's on the battlefield. And before the battle, he's supposed to fight. He's facing his cousin brothers, his uncles, his grandfather. But what happens to Arjuna? He gets into a very materialistic mindset. Arjuna says, my dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying. So this is similar to Maharaj Bharat. He fell from his spiritual platform and he got onto this material platform. My whole body's trembling. My hairs are standing on end. My bow gandiva is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning. I do not see any good that can come from killing my own kinsman in the battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. So he's on the battlefield, and all of a sudden he's overwhelmed by this whole concept of materialism, basically. Oh, Govinda, what avail to us are kingdoms, happiness, or even life itself, when all of those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on the battlefield. So poor Arjuna, he's just giving Krishna all these reasons. Krishna is there, he's his chariot driver, and Arjuna is just totally bewildered all of a sudden, like Maharaj Bharat. He was in his meditation, he was in his ashram, he had reached a certain spiritual platform, and then this deer comes along and he becomes overly attached. So Arjuna is also displaying the same mentality. Alas, how strange is it that we are prepared to commit greatly sinful activities driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness. We are intent on killing our own kinsmen. And so Krishna is standing there and he sees Arjuna bewildered by the situation. And he realizes that Arjuna has become totally influenced by this material concept of life. So Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy. O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. And Arjuna goes on. Now I'm confused about my duty. If I've lost all my composure because of miserly weakness in this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So Krishna, and then he says, Govinda, I shall not fight. And then Govinda says, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. And Krishna goes on to speak the Bhagavad Gita. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall they cease to be. So what's the difference here? Here's Maharaj Bharat. He's out in the middle of the forest, and he's fallen into this dilemma, like Arjuna did, this dilemma of material consciousness. But in Arjuna's case, Krishna was standing there, and he was able to pick Arjuna up and put him on the transcendental platform. And Arjuna went on and fought the battle. But he'd risen from this mundane platform of so-called compassion, and Krishna has lifted him to a spiritual platform to see that all these generals and all these friends and relatives on the other side are not their body, and that it's his desire that Arjuna fight. But there's poor Maharaj Bharat. He's there and he's totally bewildered. He's fallen, and the deer is the only thing he can think of, right? So he's totally attached, and his mind is totally bewildered. And poor Maharaj Bharat, he dies. He dies in that consciousness. So the conditioned soul is in an unusual place. The conditioned soul who is becoming Krishna conscious has the good fortune of having that connection with Krishna and the great devotees, and the association of devotees, like aspiring devotees that are also on the path back to home, back to Godhead, endeavoring to their own capacity at their own speed to make progress. And sometimes we're Krishna conscious, and sometimes we're bewildered by the material energy, and we have a tendency to become attached, materially attached. That's who we are. This is our situation. And Bharat Maharaj, he was just in the same situation, but he had no association, no one to pick him up and to get him back on that platform. So in our situation, we have to constantly endeavor to keep Krishna in the forefront, to keep our spiritual teachings, because it's so easy to get carried away by the material realm, friends, family, work, position, whatever, sense gratification. It's just who we are. So in the Civilization and Transcendence, Prabhupada says, the transcendental platform means there is no sinful activity. It is above any question of sinful. Pious and sinful activities are there as long as you are on the material platform, good and bad, pious and sinful. These are all considered on the material platform. But when you are on the transcendental platform, you are automatically without sin. So Bharat Maharaj, he was in a situation where he could have done one of two things. He could have realized that the deer was a material attachment, and he could have gone on and gotten back into his stronger transcendental consciousness and gone on with his meditation and just depended on Krishna, that he was going to protect the deer somehow or other. But instead of doing that, he fell down, basically. He fell down into material consciousness and started chasing that desire to protect the deer. Oh, that beautiful deer. And this is what happens. We start doing the same thing when we get into our material consciousness. We have to pull ourselves back, knowing what the difference is. So Mataji just read the 10 offenses, the 10th offense. To not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. Right? So we think, well, oh, but this is my family and this is my world, this is my life. I'm a human being. I have to have sense gratification. And of course, we have our responsibility and we have our material attachments. It's natural. But we have to know where to draw the line, right? Our families certainly need our protection. I mean, Prabhupada in his own life, we have to see that at a certain point, he made a decision. He made a decision not to stay with his family. I'm sure he loved his family, and his family were devotees, right? But he had the calling of Krishna, and he had a mission given to him by his spiritual master. And Prabhupada, being who he was very strongly connected with Krishna and the mission of Krishna consciousness. And at a certain point in time, because his family was not inclined to proceed in his desire to serve his spiritual master so strongly, he gave his wife a choice, tea or me. And she said, oh, tea, I guess it's tea. And Prabhupada just took that as Krishna's calling. He gave up his family life. He walked out and never came back again. He took sannyas and went on to preach Krishna consciousness. So we have those kind of situations in our life all the time. Sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's family. When people aren't inclined or are totally against Krishna consciousness. You know, many of you are raised in India by families that know Krishna. But when you're in the West, this is how Prabhupada started off. His disciples were from the Western background and not a very strong spiritual background, most of them. Most of the people in the West, maybe they go to church on Sunday. Maybe they go to church just at Christmas and Easter. You know, it's not a real common thing that people get up in the morning and worship the Lord in America and spend hours chanting their rosaries and go to the church and go to every Sunday to Mass and have Bible study. It's not a real common thing. So Prabhupada's disciples, Prabhupada was taking these young people who were from questionable situations of being hippies, following none of the regulator principles in many cases, and trying to give them something spiritual. And the teachings that Prabhupada is giving, and that we're fortunate enough, our whole disciplic succession is giving, is such a high standard. Prabhupada's base was the 4 regulator principles. Simple, easy, but for a Westerner who's raised on meat, who's having illicit sex life usually, who's most likely taking intoxication, and gambling is also there. Look at the lottery, that's gambling. So when that's the norm of life, how easy is it to follow the 4 regulator principles? But that was Prabhupada's baseline. He didn't come as a cheater and say, oh, you do anything, you have, like there were some swamis that were in America at the time. Oh, yes, it doesn't matter what you do. You can have illicit sex life, do whatever, just chant these mantras. Prabhupada wasn't like that at all. No illicit sex life, no intoxication, no meeting, no gambling. That was his baseline. But somehow or other, he took these young people and spoon-fed them Krishna consciousness, but in a loving, but also in a softly strict way. And he actually didn't want us to get involved in our materialistic way of life basically at all. You know, I mean, he definitely discouraged people from going back to school, getting a higher education, going out and looking for big jobs. You know, he dealing much with our extended family. It wasn't the push at all. I think it was years before I connected with my family, as most of us, because Prabhupada was trying to take us from this mundane platform and give us Krishna consciousness. And it was very, very strong. Prabhupada was very strong. The schedule that he gave was amazing. You know, everyone was up early. Everyone chanted their rounds in the temple, attended Mangalarti, the whole morning program, and did service all day, and then the full evening program, and chanted all your rounds. That was just like the normal lifestyle for everyone. And that's pretty concentrated. But that was how Prabhupada lifted these devotees up, put them on a spiritual platform, and you know, things went forward. Prabhupada was using the devotees, these new young people, to push on Lord Chaitanya's movement kindly. He pushed and pushed, and the devotees just engaged full time. I mean, you didn't even hardly think about sleeping. Of course, we were young, and we built, you know, we got temples and printing presses. Prabhupada wanted books printed, chanting on the street, festivals, Ratha Yatras. It was like an emergency. Prabhupada had come to the West to save the fallen souls, right? To save the animals, to save the planet. And so he used whatever came his way, and he did it with such grace, but with such intention and so powerfully. And Prabhupada wasn't, because of the platform that Prabhupada was working on himself, he didn't consider so much all the small stuff. Like, for instance, here's an example. Yesterday, in the Pujari room, that what usually happens 90% of the time is that the Pujari gets the offering off the altar, puts it in the transfer trays, washes the dishes, and then goes and does arti. And then someone else comes along and takes the tray of maha into the prasadam room to distribute to everyone. It's just like 99% of the time. So there was one of the devotees and her children and grandchildren that were visiting. And I saw them in the temple. And I said, oh, I've got to get them some maha. So I went to the pujari room. The pujari was on the altar doing the artik. I saw the tray. It was all transferred and ready. I picked it up, went in and made plates for these visiting devotees. And a few minutes later, the pujari comes in like, oh, who took that maha out of there? I said, well, I did. Well, I haven't finished washing the plates yet. You know, okay. You know, it was like a really big thing to her. And I just said, well, I'm sorry, you know, the plates were transferred. It looked like it was ready to go. And we had some people that were visiting that grew up here, and I wanted, you know. So although things were very strict when Prabhupada was there, something like that wasn't even known. You know, you didn't even know that you should wait to transfer the plates. What to speak of get angry at someone who is distributing prasadam. So Prabhupada's way of doing things at the time was that it was an emergency. And sometimes the small things he didn't even teach the small things at the time. Our take was just, you know, you offer some circles to the deities with some incense. We didn't even have deities in the beginning. We had pictures. you had a bell, you offered some incense. We didn't have ghee lamps. And the bell was probably some jingle bell or something. You know, it wasn't like the regular standard of higher service that we see within ISKCON right now. It was just Prabhupada started it, and it was go forward with whatever we had. Someone approached me in LA one time, one of my godbrothers, and said something about the young people and their kirtan. That, oh, it's not traditional like it was when we had such potency by the way we did it. And I looked at him and I said, what are you talking about? You know, our young people are doing kirtan all the time. They're so absorbed in it. They want to chant Hare Krishna. And what was our great potency? We had jingle bells. We had sticks that we played. What was our great following of the standard of kirtan? We didn't have mridangas. You know, we beat on a pot maybe with a spoon. You know, it's like the potency does not come just with all these rules and regulations. So Prabhupada was in an emergency. He wanted Krishna consciousness spread, and it was just done in a very simple way. Chant Hare Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna, go on the streets, tell people what you know, distribute Back to Godhead magazines because we didn't have books. So sometimes it's not all just following the rules and regulations for the sake of following the rules and regulations, or getting so anal about rules and regulations that we start fighting amongst ourselves. No, kirtan should be done this way. No, it shouldn't be done like that. These people, I won't listen to their kirtan because it's not done like this or like that. It's like, excuse me, Srila Prabhupada did not do it like that. You know, sure, it's wonderful if people learn traditional tunes and if they can do artik with the perfect mudras and mantras and the perfect paraphernalia, the right size bell rung in the certain way in the certain circles. It's wonderful if we can do that. But it's certainly not all in all, and it's certainly not worth starting a war within our society about. Peacock feather, yes, a peacock feather on Lord Nityananda. No, not a peacock feather. You know, it's like we have a bigger, oh, there's a terrible US saying, a bigger fish to fry, which is a horrible saying, but we have a bigger mission. You know, we shouldn't stress the small stuff, nor put other people into stress about the small stuff. And this Pujari friend of mine, she really didn't have to come in and chastise whoever took the offering because it wasn't her way, how she saw it, you know. It just, it causes conflict. We don't want conflict. So I was also thinking that the idea of taking sannyas and vanaprastha when we get older, it's so good. It's such a good idea to know that our family attachments are definitely wonderful. And if we can engage our family in Krishna's service, if we can raise our children so that they pick up the chanting, so that they maybe get initiated, so that they offer their food, so that they have Krishna in their house. This is what being a parent is for, or being a friend or relative. This is what it's for. And to the extent that we can do that, it's definitely worth pursuing. But at a certain point in life, when we start getting, I mean, Prabhupada said 50 years old for a man to take sannyas. I mean, that's really not happening in our society right now. Very few people are following that. As a matter of fact, some are getting remarried at 50, 60. It's like, whoa, that is not really, something is missing there. People, it's like Jad Bharat, they forget the goal, that concentrating our our energies and our mind as we get older on the transcendental platform is such an important situation. We need to detach ourselves from material consciousness, even the mode of goodness, performing welfare work. We want to do good for others. We want to be a good person. We want to do so many good things, like Arjuna did, like Maharaj Bharat. That's our material mode of goodness consciousness, which is a stepping stone into transcendence. But we don't want to absorb ourselves in the mode of goodness in those type of activities, forgetting that our transcendental consciousness is what's going to carry us on, right? We need to detach from our material consciousness. And it's not a matter of forcing someone like that. What is that? At the time of a husband's death, the wife can do sati. She can enter into the fire of her husband because that attachment was so much stronger that it would be more painful for her to live without him. But in this day and age, it's not something that we force somebody to do. Throw them in the fire. Here, your husband's gone. Here, you go into the fire. That's horrible. And also, sannyas and vanaprastha is not something that we force somebody to do, but at the same time, for our own situation, it's a good way to go, right? We can be absorbed in our consciousness more if we're not thinking only about family and material responsibilities. Because, death is, like Prabhupada said, sure as death. Death is coming today or tomorrow. And we want to be in our best consciousness when that happens. And it's generally more apparent when we get older and things stop working, that death is coming, that our organs aren't working as well. The outside of the body is sagging, right? We know the inside of the body is also sagging. The organs are becoming weaker. They're not working as well. The heart's not working as well. So it's not like by taking this vitamin, we're going to just become so strong, or okay, I'm going to start running, we're 65, 70, we're going to run and stay healthy. Staying healthy when you're old is almost not really an option because the body's starting to break down. So, so we want to be aware. We're more aware when we get older. That it's time to get really serious. And we see that Krishna helps, right? It's not like something to be afraid of. Okay, I'm so much into my material life. I don't really want to give up anything. Even I'm 70 years old. I want to just stay in family life and play with the grandchildren and just do totally absorbed and think of Krishna too. That's okay. If you want to do that, Krishna helps. I know some of my godbrothers actually who had served Prabhupada. They left Krishna consciousness for several years. And I know two of them who went and did some very unusual things for many years. But at the end, somehow or other, Krishna kindly made an arrangement. Krishna is grateful. He made an arrangement and brought them back into the association of devotees and to their Krishna consciousness, so that at the time of death, they were thinking of Krishna. I mean, I don't know if they went back to Godhead, but at least Krishna took them, brought them back. They left in good consciousness. Anyway, so death is there. And we know it's going to happen today or tomorrow. And the idea that Prabhupada gave us is that it's like creating a spiritual bank balance. right? As much time and energy and consciousness, intentional consciousness, our motivation for doing things is what we're trying to change here. And it doesn't always mean that we have to leave family, but our motivation, our consciousness in doing things is what we're trying to build, staying on a transcendental platform. So all that we do, all that we eat, all that we offer and give away, everything we want to do with the consciousness to please Krishna. Somehow or other, Maharaj Bharat, he was thinking about the deer, but he wasn't so much thinking about Krishna at the time. So he kind of left aside his bank balance. So we are accumulating a bank balance through our japa, through our classes, through our association with devotees on a spiritual platform. That's what Archie is for, going to the temple, giving in charity to the devotees. We are growing our spiritual bank balance. So at the time of death, that bank balance is our spiritual bank balance goes with us, right? And according to how much we've gained in our spiritual life, that gives us our next life. So we may not remember Krishna at the time of death, but Prabhupada said Krishna will remember us. And then if we put our spiritual endeavor last, then our bank balance will be there, but not so much. So, and then when it's time to take birth again, we go on, right? Whatever state of mind one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So there Krishna is giving us that direction, right? Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Because death can happen. One of the young men here, he's from Wheeling, and he met the devotees. You know, he was a skateboarder, young person in the area. And of course, along with that lifestyle, there's always intoxication, illicit sex life, of course, meat eating. Somehow or other, he became attracted to Krishna consciousness about 7 years ago. And he's just been very focused ever since, doing classes online. He was a brahmachari for a number of years. And he had a little preaching center in town. So the other day he was giving class at night online on Facebook. And then he got a call the next morning. His brother, his 27-year-old brother, had died the night before, right, in a motorcycle accident. It's like, just, 27 years old. And the boy had opportunities to make some spiritual advancement, and he did a little bit of service. But, he didn't realize the emergency, state of emergency for the soul. So Prabhupada's program was very intense. Actually, I have this letter that Prabhupada wrote in his personal handwriting, and it used to be posted on the walls. And he wrote, "Notice, all initiated devotees must attend the morning and evening classes, must not be addicted to any kind of intoxicants, including coffee, tea, and cigarettes." This was written in 1966 by Srila Prabhupada. "They are forbidden to have illicit sex connections, must be strictly vegetarian, shall not excessively mix with non-devotees, should not eat foodstuff cooked by non-devotees." Now, this is way in the beginning, and these are not young people generally that had their own house and big bank balance. But even then, he's emphasizing not eating food cooked by non-devotees. So what does that entail? Well, why? Because it affects our consciousness, right? Eating outside food. When I was in Vrindavan one time, I was at the house of, what is his name? The one of the priests from the Radharaman temple. I was there looking. He had some old albums that his father had with letters from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj or Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Padmanabha Goswami. And his wife had cooked for us. And they were saying that they never eat outside food, even in Vrindavan. They never eat anything that's cooked by anyone else outside. And that's in Vrindavan. What to speak of going to the grocery store and loading up on whatever, potato chips, cereal, bread. You know, it's not like a sinful activity, but at the same time, it's not good for our consciousness. So as we want to progress more and more, we want to become stricter in following even the small things, because it raises our consciousness, which is what we're looking for. We're not here to be in a club. We're not here to, it's not like a game kind of thing. We're here to actually raise our consciousness. And it's very serious. In one of the letters Srila Prabhupada wrote to me, he said, you should be very serious always. And I mean, I can't say that I'm definitely perfect at following that instruction, but still, to do our best to give up those things that are not good for our Krishna consciousness, and to take on those things that are good for our Krishna consciousness. It's a gradual process, but it's something that if we want to actually become Krishna conscious, those are things that we should do. And when the time clock shows that, hey, your life, and when the mirror shows that, hey, your life is like really moving on, it's time to become very serious, at least then, right? So one should not eat foodstuff cooked by non-devotees, should not waste time in idle talks. I was trying to chant my japa yesterday at the temple, and I know better, but at the same time, sometimes I make the mistake. I said something to one person, just while I was walking by, I said something, and immediately they got into this whole 10-minute, 15-minute conversation. It's like, oh no, what did I do? I wanted to go finish my rounds. And then something else, so I was chanting later. And I did the same thing again, just trying to greet somebody. But then they got into this whole 10-minute conversation. It's like, oh dear, what, to spend a lot of time in idle talk. It's kind of like idle talk. It's a waste of our time. So should not waste time in idle talks, nor engage himself in frivolous sports. Yeah, I know years ago here that the men had a soccer team on the bricks out in front of the temple. And, the different sannyasis were part of it, some. But then they were trying to get exercise. And believe me, I don't know all the details, Like the boy next door, he's in the soccer team. He goes to high school. But he's not like trying to be fully engaged in his transcendental consciousness either. But anyway, this is directions for us. Should always chant and sing the Lord's holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And he signs it, thank you, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Acharya. So Prabhupada was giving direction to his new young neophyte disciples. So what to speak of us? We've made some progress. Most of us are initiated. We want to start tightening the screws of our Krishna consciousness. Becoming more serious reading. And as Yugala Kishore would say, I'm preaching to myself. Some people have a great propensity to read. And they can read every day. What is it, Vaisheshika Prabhu? The like verse a day or something like that. He has these programs where you can read the whole Srimad Bhagavatam in this many days or that many days, depending on how many verses you read. It's a good thing. You get together with a group and you read verses, or you read yourself and you get through the Bhagavatam in a certain amount of time. The Prabhupada actually often made the comment that he was not just after his disciples distributing books. He wanted them to read. He was trying to get them to become Krishna conscious. Otherwise, the time of death will paint the picture of what we've done and how seriously and how deeply we've done it. We want to get to the consciousness. Prabhupada's consciousness was so different than ours. He was really on such a transcendental platform, and that was how he was able to change the world and uplift so many living entities. It's not that he just knew verses and he, chanted his rounds every day. Prabhupada had a certain platform of Krishna consciousness that was extraordinary. He was actually able to call the living entities and inspire them and to plant the seed of devotion in their heart. That's an extraordinary person. What is that he was called? He was Krishna's commander-in-chief. He came on behalf of the Lord and the disciplic succession to give a message to the world on such a platform that when you were around Srila Prabhupada, you automatically got a view of that platform. And that's how ISKCON was built, and that's how it's built now. We're getting a taste, we're getting a vision of the spiritual realm, of Krishna's pastimes, of these great souls that we're hearing from Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We're feeling their presence and their association and their help in our lives. And so we're able to go forward and stay in Krishna consciousness. It's not like I say, it's not like a club. Oh, I'm stamp an older devotee, or I'm stamp a disciple of this person or that person. It's actually the real picture, as they say, the real deal is that we're changing our consciousness to be able to become servants of Krishna and carry out his desire and his mission and the mission and desire of the great souls. It's not on a material platform that I've been here so many years, or that I have this position, or that I'm initiated by this person. I mean, someone can come along that's actually made great progress in their last life and be a brand new devotee and be more advanced than we are, no matter how long we've been around. you know, my respect and obeisances to the lotus feet of so many devotees in our movement that are actually so advanced, much more advanced than myself. You know, I've been around a long time, just trying with my little ability, my little, like the spider in Lord Ramachandra's pastimes, with my little grain of sand, trying to help propagate Krishna consciousness. But then I see some of these great Hanumans and the wonderful classes and service that they're doing in the world. And it's very humbling. Like Prabhupada said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj that one time, he said, because certain people had certain attitudes of superiority. Anyway, he said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj many years before, so there is this like huge creation, and there's this huge universe, and within this huge universe, there's so many planets, and on one planet, there's a big country, and within this big country, there's this one city, and within this big city, there's this one temple, small temple, and within the small temple, there's this one small Tamal Krishna Maharaj. You know, it's like putting them in this place of not being, you're not so great. You're just like this little dot. So Prabhupada was helping him because he knew where he was at, and he knew how to change that, how to awaken him. So we're the same way. It's easy to think we're somebody big when actually this may be our first life in Krishna consciousness. And no matter how long we've been around, we still may be like the least advanced person in the whole movement, which is fine. But we need to not do what Maharaj Bharat did. We need to not take it for granted that we've made a certain amount of advancement, and then we're going to go off into this whole realm of materialism because we think we're fixed up, or older devotees, or whatever. So we have to, these are some of the weeds that we have to make sure don't grow in our garden of devotion. So poor Bharat Maharaj, there he is, worrying about his little deer, totally absorbed. Has he been eaten by a wolf or a tiger? Where is he? Is he with some demigod? He's left me because I haven't done things right. You know, he's thinking all these things. Like Arjuna was thinking all these things, and he was right. But for the spiritual consciousness, it's a mistake. So we will see what happens to him in this consciousness. And the story is to be continued tomorrow. All right, I think I'm done.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for such a beautiful, beautiful class. Your class is always very nice, and the way you're comparing the Bharat Maharaj to Arjuna, and then you are talking about the 10th offense, the last offense that we just read before the class, the composition, how we should not have we should have a complete faith, and we should not have an attachment to our family members, even after knowing so many things about Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That was very beautiful composition. And the letters that you read for us was always so nice, Mataji. You always make us so close to Srila Prabhupada by your speech. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. If anybody have any questions or realization, please go ahead. Hare Bol.
And can I say, it's not that one should not have attachment for his family, it's that one should not have material attachment.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, yes.
After understanding so many instructions on this matter.
Yes, yes.
All right, it looks like either everyone is asleep or nobody has any questions. Hope I didn't put you to sleep. Sorry.
No, Mataji, your class is full. Means we don't have any doubts. You are very clear in your points, Mataji. It's not, we are not sleeping, Mataji. It was so nice.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Is there anybody having any questions or realizations? Please go ahead. Mataji, please go ahead, Mataji.
हरे कृष्णा माता जी, अनंत कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम। शिल प्रभुपाद, शिल गुरुदेव की जय, श्री राधा गोपीनाथ की जय। माता जी, we are all not sleeping, hearing your class attentively, and Mata ji, it's a charge our battery of whole month. Your class is so inspire all of us that what should our move to serve Srila Prabhupada. How many difficulties you passed, and still you are serving so sincerely Srila Prabhupada. Mataji, please pray for us that we can at least 0.0% we can do little seva to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Gauranga Mataji, Ananta Koti Danvat Pranam, Jai Jai Nityananda, Jai Jai Gauranga. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I mean, life itself is problematic. It's going to come whether we're in Krishna consciousness or not. But at least if we're in Krishna consciousness, we have a lot of realization into the situation. Like this young man whose brother died. It was just like all of a sudden his younger brother was dead. You know, but because of his absorption in Krishna consciousness, he's able to deal with the situation, help his family, and we know that it helped his brother, his absorption in Krishna's service. So, yeah, what is the choice? You're going to suffer anyway in this. You've got this body, you're going to suffer. But with our Krishna consciousness, we have so much more knowledge, and so we're so much more free from distress. I mean, as much as we've made progress, that much we're going to be free from our connection to the distress of this world. Like Prabhupada, he mentions in the Bhagavad Gita about the pure devotee doesn't feel the happiness or distress of this world. You know, that's when Prabhupada was passing away, the disease that he had was something that anyone else, the doctor said, would be calling, screaming in pain. Prabhupada was translating the Bhagavatam to his last breath. Can you imagine? I mean, I can't imagine. On his deathbed, he's translating the Bhagavatam. That's extraordinary. You know, we want to get to the point where we are also on the transcendental platform, because that's where the peace is. That's where we're going to be peaceful. I mean, we can think going out into the forest is smelling of flowers going to make us peaceful, but it's like, you know, one drop. We get a little relief for a second, but someone on the transcendental platform that we're invited to go on, that's actual relief from suffering. All right, well, if there's no questions or comments, looks like we might be finished for the day.
Thank you, Mataji. And I really like the point that you are talking about the spiritual credits that we need to gain before we leave. That is the main thing for us. That's very nice point, Mataji. Thank you so much. By your class, hearing which, I mean, I personally gain a lot of spiritual credit, Mataji. Thank you so much for such a beautiful, beautiful class.
Thank you, everyone, for your association.
Hare Krishna. Jayasri Mataji, very nice class.
Sorry.
Very nice, you explain everything. So many important mercy. Thank you very much.
Everyone, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
I would like to offer my obeisances to you, Mataji, and all the Vaishnavas assembled here. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Mataji ki jai.
Thank you so much, Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Dandavat pranam. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Dandavat pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.